Hi there, my name is Jamie, and welcome to May's episode of Quick Market Talks with Experts. Today we are featuring a new expert. His name is Ho Sing Fu. Sing Fu is a veteran in the stockbroking industry, having been a remiser with CGS CIMB Securities since 1993. Let's find out the short-term trading ideas that Sing Fu has at the moment. Grab your coffee and listen in to our conversation. Hi, Sing Fu.
Hi, Jamie. Good to see you. Happy to be here.
Thank you for agreeing to join our panel of market experts sharing on short-term trading ideas that investors can potentially capitalize on. My understanding is that you have a customized stock picking method using your super stock trading system. I'm wondering if that has helped you pick a few stocks that are currently looking good in this present market environment.
Sure. I'm happy to share. What you see on the chart here is actually the chart of the Hang Seng Tech Index. So as we all know that since the beginning of last year, there was a big tech crackdown, and the market index, in this case, the Hang Seng Tech Index has dropped almost like 73%. All right, before hitting a major bottom in October last year. So if I were to zoom in from this October last year's bottom, we're already almost 70%, okay, to the top in January this year. So the market has recovered quite strongly, right, given the tone down in the rhetoric from the Chinese government over the tech crackdown. All right, so we actually see a very major, big rally all the way up here. All right, then it did retracement to somewhere in March at the level of 3,800. All right. Then it did another rally before it came down to 3,800 again. So incidentally, we are seeing some kind of the market trying to find a support at this level. Why I'm saying that is that if you notice the 3,800 level here, right, it's actually a support level that we encountered in March, early March this year. Similarly, it was actually a resistance level that the market encountered sometime in November this year. So we are seeing this November resistance turning to be a support level for these two particular periods. All right, so the market is trying to attempt a rebound, and hopefully we can see some more strength from this level. All right, so and if I may zoom in further, right? Okay, so you notice this period that marked here sometime over here, where you have this pinkish circle. This is exactly where the market peaked in 1st of April this year, right, just a month ago. Now, since then, the index has fallen another 12%, right? So I'm talking about this region here. It's fallen almost 12% to 3,800 level. So given this sharp, almost like a minor downturn, right, we will expect the general market and most of the stocks to be coming down, weakening. I mean, maybe making lower low, lower highs. But I noticed there are certain stocks that actually inherently they have a high relative strength, meaning they are performing better than markets. In fact, they're trying to rebound or even making new highs. Right. So given this context, I would like to zoom in into two stocks that I'm talking about today. Firstly will be this stock called BYD. So I'm going to switch the chart to the pinkish circle here. This is exactly the point where the Hang Seng Index peaked. And then subsequently, it actually went, right, it has a pattern of higher high and higher lows, right? Do you see here? So actually, these are what we call high relative strength stocks. Stocks that are actually bucking the downturn. And these are stocks that are showing some kind of bullish chart pattern that potentially traders or investors who are looking for long trade ideas can look at favorably. All right, so maybe we can also take a look at the volume characteristics. Okay, now all these arrows that you see here right at the bottom, right over here. Okay, this is where the market is showing, right, on days when the market is showing a rally and on high volume. All right, so like this, all these arrows. All right, I've marked up point. Okay, the arrows are pointing at the volume bar, which are green color. When the volume bar is green color, it means that on that day, the market went up, and that is the volume printed. All right, so you notice the green volume bar compared to the red ones, which are days when the market dropped. The green volume bars are generally taller. It shows that the buying volume is very strong on those days, right? And then when the market rally, and usually rally on high volume, but when it's coming off, it's actually coming off of lower volume. These are very bullish characteristics for a stock that's running up. So the past week has also seen a very strong rally for the BYD from almost $228 to up to $250 this morning. Okay, so we are seeing some kind of short-term weakness because 250 is actually a prior resistance level. So potentially the stock could actually make a maybe a short-term pullback, all right, back to the support level of 233, right? So long as the is still making a series of high and high lows, right? I think the bullish pattern is still in play. And if the resistance at 250 can be taken out, potentially we can go up to almost like $260. Right. So, Jamie, right, given the bullish chart pattern they were looking at and the bullish setup in this BYD, are there any warrant in particular that the traders can look at to take advantage of this short-term bullish setup?
There are certainly warrants for investors to trade, your bullish view in BYD. Now, generally, if someone was bullish, they will consider a call warrant because call warrants track the underlying to go up. And if, someone was bearish, they would buy a put warrant because, as the underlying goes down, the put warrant actually goes up. So it moves in inverse directions. All right, Singfu, so this is the warrants.com.sg website, which I would recommend investors to use if they are trying to select a warrant to see how it will perform in future as well as how it's performed before. So in the case of BYD, one way we can search for the warrant is we can scroll down to where there is a warrant search function within the homepage. In this case, we can drop down a list and BYD is the second underlying here. And we can click on submit. And thereafter, you'll be taken to the warrant search page where you'll find a list of available warrants over the BYD. In the case of Macquarie, we do have a call warrant for bullish investors and a put warrant for bearish investors to use to opportunize on whichever direction they think BYD is going in the short term. In your case, Singfu, I think you were looking at a bullish view, so we would consider a call warrant instead. We can click into the warrant code here, and here you'll be taken to the live matrix function, which is essentially a function that tells you where the warrant is trading live versus the underlying, okay? And it will tell you exactly where it's going to trade. So for example, if you were to go to 254 today, you see that the warrant bid price would be 4.9 cents and 5 cents on the offer. But to see how it has performed historically, there is a historical performance tab. In the case of this BYD warrant, Singfu, correct me if I'm wrong, but just looking at the chart here, it seems that just in March, it had dropped to a low of about sub 200. Okay,
Yes,
and I
correct.
think the exact date was around 14th of March, where it was trading just below 200 before it's rebounded to where it currently is, close to 238 levels that you pointed out. So in this case, let's have a look at how it's done through the rebound over the past 2 months, from 14th of March to yesterday's price, where BYD went up to 243.4, which is a 24% increase from the 14th of March, where it rebounded from a sub 200 level. Over this period, over the past 2 months, this BYD call warrant has gone up 100%. So that's about 4.5 times of what the underlying has done. So this is the reason why someone would consider a BYD call warrant to trade a short-term bullish move on BYD shares rather than to enter into BYD shares directly, Singfu. So in this case, I think you're projecting a bit of an upside. So investors have got obviously some options, either to directly buy the shares traded in Hong Kong, listed in Hong Kong, or they could consider other instruments such as warrants, right, which is traded in Singapore dollars and at a fraction of where the underlying is traded, but at the same time potentially provide magnified gains versus what the underlying is doing. So to see how it would perform based on your view, there is a warrant selector tool. Okay, you can find it in the warrant tools drop down. You can click on it. And how it works is you simply have to choose your underlying that you have a view on. Okay, whether you're bullish or bearish. We'll choose the call because Singfu, you're bullish. And then thereafter, simply set the target price that you're looking at. So Singfu, I believe you were mentioning around a 260 level.
Yes, yes.
Okay, there is a 5.7% increase over where the current price is. But obviously, you will say that, if it pulled back to 230 Hong Kong dollars, that would be a good entry point. But let's assume that someone was looking at it at this level, right, at 246, after confirmation that it's rebounded from the 230 level. Now, Singfu, could I ask what kind of time period, do you have in view based on where you think BYD is likely to go?
Right. We can work on a time frame like 3 weeks.
Okay, in that case, we can choose the time frame at 3 weeks. And you will see that at 3 weeks, given that BYD, if it were to move up 5.7% from here to the target level that Singfu is looking at, 260 Hong Kong dollars, the warrant price will go up from 4.1 cents today to 4.8 cents in 3 weeks, which is a 17% return versus what the underlying is doing. Now, the longer you hold on to it, you see that the percentage return is dropping. And the reason for that is because of the holding cost, otherwise known as time decay in the warrant. And you see that if you were to hold it for 5 weeks, it will still generate a return. But in this case, the return is only 4.9%, less than the underlying price return of 5.7%. And if you were to hold it for 6 weeks, even if BYD were to go up to $260 Hong Kong dollars, so close to 6% from here, but this call warrant would in fact make no return, okay? It will be unchanged. So this is the effect of time decay, which is why using this warrant selector tool is so important, because it tells you the maximum holding period that you can have via this warrant if your view was, that the stock will go to 260. Obviously, if the shares were to go to, say, 270, then you can afford to hold on to it for longer, because even at 6 weeks, it's going to generate a 22% return versus a 9.8% return in the share sometime. So the moral of the story is, if you were looking at a longer holding period, then your upside target on the shares need to be more. In this case, if it's going to be 260, which is a 6% return, then you need to note that your maximum holding period, this warrant, would probably be only around 4 weeks, okay? Unless your target price was going to be higher. Singfu, I hope that provides an explanation to you on how the warrants over BYD would work.
Yes, Jamie, very interesting. I think the website has provided certain very useful tool for the investor to be more familiarize themselves with the warrant trading, as well as you have rightly highlighted some of these risk issues with trading warrants being, of course, they are more leveraged, and given the time decay, it's more like a short-term trading instrument rather than the long-term hold. Right. Thanks so much.
BYD is not an unfamiliar name. At the same time, it's been in the news quite a bit this week for the reason that Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway company is further trimming their stake in BYD to sub 10%. So what's your take on that? Is that something that investors need to be a bit more wary about as, they undertake a bullish stance in BYD as, you are bullish?
Okay. Given the major shareholder like Warren Buffett, who usually take a long-term view on the stock, and he is selling, definitely is actually interpreted as a negative to the sentiment of the stock. But the interesting fact is that the share is still making higher high and higher lows, which is actually on the uptrend. So I would say that I like certain stocks where, in spite of bad news, they're performing well relative to the market. So I think so long as the technical picture is still showing on an uptrend, I think it's still a low risk play to stick to the long side on this stock.
Right. Thanks for the insight. Now, earlier when you were introducing the Hang Seng Tech, where you're giving a broad overview, you did mention that you have 2 stocks in your mind. So you've covered one of them, BYD. What's the other stock, may I ask?
Yes, the other stock that's very interesting is also a very long-term favorite among Chinese investors, or rather investors investing in China stocks. Is very well-known counter called Ping An Insurance. This is the chart of Ping An. Okay, what we are seeing here is that the market has now remember the pink the circle that I highlighted, this marked the point where it's the beginning of April. And exactly, if you remember the chart of Hang Seng Index, which is this one, right? Since 1st of April, the market actually took a dip of 12% to almost 3,800 level. But despite that, Ping An, right, from 1st of April, actually make a rally, right? And it's also similar to what we are seeing in BYD. It's also making a series of higher high and higher low. So this is what I like about chart pattern like this, okay, where they're making a series of high, 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 low, in spite of the bearish markets, bearish market sentiment you are witnessing at the moment in the market. All right. So what are the interesting the things, a technical picture we can look at is that if you notice at the bottom window where I have arrows pointing to those green volume bars, right, it shows that on those days when the market is rallying, the volume of printer is very high. That means it shows that a lot of buyers are rushing to it, right? On days when market is correcting, like now, right, say these few days when the market is coming off, you can see 3 consecutive red bar. You notice that the red volume bars over here, they are actually much shorter. All right, so this is actually a very bullish setup too, whereby the stock ready on high volume, but it's coming down on pretty much more diminished volume, right? So, and if we were to examine some of the important support and resistance levels, so this is what I can identify. All right, so Ping An broke up from the 58 level, right, which is around here, and went up to trade as high as 62 3 days ago, right? So the share is now putting back again to almost 58. It's coming back to the previous resistance zone, right? So, and there's another minor resistance at the level of 55, which I have drawn a second horizontal line below 58. So this band between 55 to 58, right, should likely see a potential support for this share. All right, so long as Ping An is still showing the series of higher high and high low that what we're seeing now, right, it's still a tradable stock on the bullish side. Right. So what if so potentially it could actually come back down to the 55 to 58 zone, and then probably make another attempt to back to the 62 level, which is here. All right. So you might be seeing something like this, got pulling back, and then subsequent rebound back to the 62 level. Right. So Jamie, once again, given this bullish setup that we noticed in Ping An, right, how would you recommend investor approach this particular trade idea, right, if they want to take advantage of the idea using warrants?
So to see how this warrant will perform based on Seng Fu's view, we can use the warrant selector. And here we would choose Ping An, currently at 57.70. Choose a call. And Seng Fu, I believe your view is around $60 to 62.
Yes. After this pullback, if we were to break 58, it should go up to 62. As the next resistance level will be $60. Yes.
Okay, so $60 is 4% from here. Okay, let's have a look at 2 weeks first. So this warrant in 2 weeks will go up by 18.2%. So that's again about 4.5 times of what the Ping An shares will do in 2 weeks. In 3 weeks, it's going to go up by less because of time decay, the holding cost setting in, and it will still go up by more than 2 times of the underlying, 9.1%. If you were to buy into the warrant at 2.2 cents, while Ping An shares are trading sub $58 at around 57.70. Now, at $62, which is 7.5% higher, you'll find that holding onto it for 3 weeks will generate a higher return in the warrant. In this case, it will go up by 36.4%, which is 5 times of the underlying return. And even if you were to hold it for 4 weeks, okay, it will still generate 32% return. And you can hold this for a maximum of 7 weeks, and it will still generate a higher percentage return of 9.1% versus the underlying. But of course, if your target level was a bit more conservative and you want to be a bit more conservative at $60, please note that at 7 weeks, it will now be generating a negative return of 13.6%. So if your target level was $60, your maximum holding period will be 4 weeks, whereby it will generate a similar return to the shares, but still higher. Okay, so in short, the maximum holding period for this warrant with a $60 target price is 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks basically, which is again in line with your view, Singfu. Also, Singfu, I think the important thing to note is that gearing works both ways. So the warrant will magnify your returns if your view was right, but if you were wrong, obviously the warrants will also magnify your losses. Okay,
No
so
problem.
Seifu, the question I have is,
Mm.
what should investors do if Ping An and BYD shares do not trade up to the target levels that you mentioned in this 2 to 3 week holding period?
Okay, that's a very, very good question because given the nature of warrants being a short-term instrument, all right, so traders or investors who are looking to use the warrants as a trading tool, right, are likely having a very short-term time frame. All right, so your trading plan in the beginning is that you want it to be a short-term trade, right? So if the stock doesn't pan out, or rather the idea doesn't pan out according to what we have discussed, right? So certainly the right thing to approach a plan is to square the position.
Okay, so to repeat, if BYD and Ping An were to not trade up to your target levels in this 2 to 3 week holding period, are you suggesting that investors should cut loss in the warrants?
Yes, correct. So if it's not going according to plan, right? So the idea is to exit from the position.
Okay. Well, with that, I suppose we've come to the end of today's sharing session with Seng Fu. Seng Fu, thank you very much for your time again. And I certainly look forward to how Ping An shares as well as BYD shares will perform in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And maybe when that time comes around in 2 to 3 weeks' time, we can then catch up again in the quick market talk to see what our trade plan can be thereafter. Now, for those of you who enjoyed the chit chat between Sing Fu and myself, please make sure you subscribe to Macquarie's YouTube channels or social media channels of Facebook as well as Telegram so that you can be informed right away on the next and latest episode of Quick Market Talks. Till then, we'll see you around. Bye bye.
Bye.